Today we're going to talk about a very important concept or a question that troubles most students or most job aspirants, and that is how to face an interview. Now, if you look at your professional career or your professional graph, or when you join a corporate company, this is something that you'll always have to deal with. Beginning from joining an organization to constant evaluation for promotions, to different departments, you will always have to be facing an interview, and therefore it's very important, or it's paramount, that you and I, we are always prepared and we know what is being expected before we walk or go for an interview. All right. So today, let's briefly look at the context of how to face an interview. Now, you always heard it saying that the first impression is always a lasting impression, right? And in fact, that's exactly what happens here. Now, if you have observed an interview setting, you always find that there are only few moments that an eligible candidate is spending time with an interviewer. And in that few moments of time, the decision is made which can really impact and affect his professional career and graph. And so, it's so important that we go very well prepared before we face an interview. They say that it takes only 15 seconds it takes only 15 seconds to assess an individual, his attitudes, his behavior, his culture, his background. And so, again, it emphasizes the fact that how important it is that we go very well prepared. So let's quickly look at the interview. So what is an interview? It is basically an internal or an interactive view, and hence it is an evaluation of a personality. All right. So the questions that are being asked and all of that process that goes through is basically an evaluation of one's personality, and to see if that particular person who's being interviewed is a right fit for the job that is being awaited for. All right. And there are different kinds or types of interviews. One is a one-on-one interview. Sometimes there could be a panel of interviewers who will be interviewing a particular candidate. Then there is technical interview if you're actually going in for a technical position. There's of course the HR interview where the finer details of behavioral assessment or salary and package and those things are finalized. There is another kind of interview called as a stress interview. We look at all of that in detail. Then of course we also have something called as the entry interview or evaluative interview, and also when one leaves an organization, there is another interview called as the exit interview. All right. So if you look at it, you'll know that once you've joined a professional graph, when you joined a corporate company, you'll know that this is something that you're always going to face, right? And so it's good for us to talk about it and learn something from how to face an interview. All right. Let's now look at some key indicators for us to keep in mind as you prepare or as you approach an interview. Okay. First and foremost, time management. It's so important, right? You don't want to walk into an interview in just the nick of the time, right? Now that's going to be very bad for you, because you're going to be. We all know that the moment we have an interview, that we need to face, we are naturally very anxious. We may be very tense. Some of us may be may have anxiety. So it's always good for us to reach the office or reach the location much before time, so you have ample time for you to go and settle down, look at the ambience, maybe observe some key indicators in the office premises. So it's very important for you to remember, to always be there, before time. Second is, yes, your dressing and grooming, right? How you dress yourself and how you carry yourself, because the moment you walk inside the door of the interviewer, the interviewer who is watching you is already started making certain observations and probably making some judgments about you. You've not even had a conversation, but just the way he looks at you, the way you walk in, says a lot about who you are and what you are here for. So it's good that we always dress well and we groom ourselves well, right? And a simple thought to always remember is always dress in something that you're very comfortable. All right. Don't put on something that you've never worn or tried, because then you're going to be very conscious. You're going to be, if it's it's tight for you, and it's going to make you very uncomfortable. So it's a good point to remember is always wear something which you're very comfortable and which you don't have to worry much about, because when you're sitting with the interviewer, you'll have to talk and you have to think on what you're speaking. So you don't have to focus much on what you're wearing and something that's hurting you or something that is bothering you here and there. All right, that's the second thing. Third indicator is again your appearance and your countenance. Don't avoid putting up too much of makeup or things like that probably would look very superficial, or would make you yourself very self-conscious. All right, so be very natural and look good. Yeah, look good, look professional, look formal. And the next is what's very important is your gestures and your postures. This all is part of your non-verbal communication. We've all known that when you study communication, that your non-verbal communication is such a powerful tool that communicates more than what you're verbally saying. So it's important to pay attention to your gestures, your hand movements, your body language, the way you would walk in, the way you would sit, the way you use your hand movements. Don't keep biting your nails. Sometimes some of us will do that if you're feeling very tense. You would not say that you're tense, but just the way you're biting your nails, or you're probably always rubbing your hands, the palm of your hands, would come across that you're very tense and you're very jittery. So pay attention to your body movements, right? Your postures, the way you sit comfortably, sit upright. And it's very nice, and it's good that you practice all these postures and gestures before you actually walk into an interview. All right. The next is your speech, your verbal communication. We like to call it as a quantity and the quality of your speech. Meaning, how much should I speak? Because that when you walk in for an interview, they're going to ask you questions, right? Now, sometimes an interview would just be a few minutes. Sometimes it can go up to a couple of hours. So there could be a lot of questions being asked. But how are you going to respond to it? How much to speak? Quantity or quality? Always focus on the quality of your speech. Say what is most important. Say what is most required. Avoid all the unnecessary talk, because that's not going to matter anyway. All right. And the last most important indicator is your confidence and the assurance. All right. You don't want to walk in and be afraid and not be tense, because you may be a right fit for the job. You may have the right understanding. You may have great skills. You may have all the knowledge and expertise that the role and responsibility requires. But if you're tense and if you're anxious and if you're not very confident, all of that is just going to run down the drain, right? So it's important that when you walk in, you take time, you breathe, and you walk in confident, and so you're able to talk through and process the interview. All right. So these are the key indicators. Next, how do you prepare for an interview? And it's very, very important. Please don't walk into an interview, no matter, even if you've faced an interview before, even if you know the organization, do not walk in without preparation. Preparation is so very important. All right. So let's look at some of the key things and how you can prepare for an interview. First thing, study your resume. Study, yes. Now, of course, it is your own resume. You would have prepared it. But, there are a lot of times when an interviewer has picked up something that is written on a particular candidate's resume and he's caught off guard. Now, you don't want to be like that. Everything that you've put on your resume, make sure that you know it very, very well. Whether it's the experience or whether it is the knowledge, or maybe you've done a particular course, or maybe you've done a project. Whatever you put on paper there, make sure you know it well, you study it well, You don't want to forget, or you don't want to be caught off guard and you want to check your own resume for reference. No, that's not the right thing. That would convey that what you've written there is not right or true about yourself. So always make sure that whatever you put in on your paper, that you know it well and you study it well. So when they ask you questions from there, you're able to respond well, and that kind of has a balance in what you're saying and what has been written there. Second, as you prepare for an interview, always take time to study about the organization. Know the organization that you're working in. It's very, very important, because that says a lot. It says that you're prepared for it. It says that you know what you're getting into. You don't want to walk into an interview not knowing what the organization is all about and saying, okay, I'll take it as it comes. No, that's not the attitude. You must take time to know the organization, right? Know what they have been doing, and maybe the profile and the job offers that's being offered to you. That's the next thing. To understand the job profile and the role that is being offered to you. You can walk into an interview and ask the interviewer himself, so what is my role? What is my responsibility? Normally they will always call you for a particular job role or a responsibility. So you always walk in being prepared, what the role and responsibility is, and you go prepared to face that point. All right. The next thing is the suitability justification. Every interviewer wants to know if you are the right fit, if you are suitable for that position, because there could be maybe 50 or 100 people who would have applied for the job and are waiting outside, for the same position for which you are, being interviewed for. So they want to make sure if you are the right fit. All right. So therefore, it's very important for you to know the organization. It's very important for you to know the job role and the responsibility that's being offered, and you've gone through it. You've read it well, and you are able to convince or convey to the interviewer that you are the right fit, that you are suitable for that role that they are looking for. Okay, so you must prepare for that. The next is always have people whom you can, for example, we call it as references, right? Now, they would always, an interviewer would always want to ask you, some references whom they could refer and check with them about you. So don't walk in an interview and when the question is asked for references and then you search your cell phone or you search your contact list, and no. Always walk in knowing, when they would ask you for references, who would you want to give? Maybe it could be your ex-employer, it could be your teacher, someone who can vouch for you, someone who could add value to what you are saying, right? So have a list of references that's ready, so when it's asked for, you can provide that. Okay, and yes, the most important is the details of your previous experiences or projects that you've done in the past. Very, very important. Keep that handy and make sure you've read through it. Make sure you know it, because this is definitely going to be asked of you. Every interview wants to know what have you done in the past. Because why do they ask you the question? They ask you the question because they want to know, if you are the right fit. And how will they know it? What you've done in the past will talk about a lot of things on how you can handle what is being offered to you. All right, so keep that prepared. Your details of the experiences, the projects that you've done. If you're a fresher, the projects that you've done, maybe your internships that you've done, right? Or some of the things that you've done while you were in campus, in college, during your course. Those can add up as an experiences. All right, and yes, the next thing is, have the details of the achievements or your accomplishments that are part of your story. It's very, very important. That says a lot about you. What have you done? Your achievements, your success stories. Keep that handy. So when it's asked of you, you can confidently share those experiences. And if you genuinely have any questions, you can always ask them that. So these are some of the points to look at as you prepare for an interview. All right. Next, let's look at the questions. The most important part of an interview is questions. Right? They're always going to be asking questions. And Normally we look at that there are always three types of questions basically, all right, that's going to be asked in an interview. First is technical. That is, if you're applying for a technical position, you'll always be faced with a lot of technical questions because that's very important, right? Second type of question is analytical questions. They give you maybe a puzzle or they give you different questions, and these questions are basically to check your analytical skills or your problem solving skills. Are you a problem solver? What are the skills that you have in facing problems, and how would you face them? And so that's a part of your analytical ability, which is also very, very much required for any job or role. The third type of question is which constitutes a major part of an interview is the behavioral questions. Why would they ask you that? Because an interviewer through the behavioral questions would want to find out how are you as a person, meaning how do you handle work situations, all right, and if you are the right fit for the job. So these are basically the three types of questions that could be asked: technical, analytical, or behavioral. Now let's look at the common questions that you normally face in every interview. We probably look at 7 important questions which you normally face in every interview. All right. The first and the most important and the most popular one, which every interviewer will ask every candidate, is introduce yourself, or they'll say, so tell me about yourself. All right. And most people, when they're faced with the question, they don't know where to start, where to begin, what should I say. It can really make you feel tense and anxious, right? But it's a very important question. Now, why would an interviewer ask? Why is an interviewer asking you about yourself? Is he trying to understand your complete life story? No, he doesn't have that much time, and he's not going to give you that much time. Why is he asking you that? Because firstly, he wants to know, can you communicate well? And secondly, most important is he wants to understand what is most important to you. Right? So when an interviewer asking you this question, don't begin with your life history, where you were born, or I like cricket, for example, and Virat Kohli is my favorite batsman. Maybe that's important to you, but that's not important for him, right? So when he's asking you tell me about yourself, you always keep these points ready. What he wants to know is, he wants to know what is important to you. So how do you answer that? You always summarize your experience or your education, right? And so without getting into much personal details, just summarize. For example, you would say, my name is Raj, and I've studied my MBA, and this was my, this was my project work, or this is where I did my internship. Or if you already have some kind of experience, talk about that work experience that you did and summarize that briefly. All right. And along with it, second thing is always talk about your best work or your achievements in that internship or in that experiences. You may have had some bad experiences, but that's not required to be said. All right. So briefly summarize your work, your experience at maybe in a project or an internship, and your achievements and accomplishments as you answer this question, because this is a very important question, and this is going to say a lot about you. This also will determine the next course of the questions is going to come in. All right. So it's very important that you prepare yourself to face and answer this question. Tell me about yourself. All right. The second important question is going to be asked is, they would say, why do you want this job? And that's a very common question. And of course, you and I know, in the back of our mind would say, oh, I want this job for money. But don't say that. Yeah, that could be important, but that's not meant to be said. Why is he asking you this question? Because the interview wants to know what motivates you for this job. Why do you want this job? Because he wants to know, what is going to motivate you? What is motivating you for this job? So, and don't give him a general answer. Don't say, oh, I like this company, it's a great company. No, don't give a very general answer like that. What do you do? How do you answer it? That's why we spoke about that. Always research about the company, know the organization well, so that when he asks you this question, you briefly talk about the company, the organization that you are that you are being that you are applying for, and the role and the responsibility that for which you're being offered or being interviewed. You talk about your skills and how your skills and abilities align with the post or the profile for which they're interviewing you for. Okay, talk about that. All right, and because these things are important, because you're going to have a long-term relationship with this company, right? So you always want to be very well prepared. Why do you want this job? What is this company? And what are the skills that you have that can match the job role that is being offered to you? All right, so that's how you answer that. The third most popular question that's going to be asked in every interview is, they would say, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Right? It's a very common question, and it's a very important question as well. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Why would the interviewer ask you that? Because he wants to really know that you know what your strengths are, right? If you're aware of what your strengths are. What about your weaknesses? He wants to know if you acknowledge what your weaknesses are so that you can work on it, all right? And again, don't make it very general. If you're mentioning any of your strengths or your weakness, always mention how and why. Meaning, what are your strengths or what are your weaknesses and how are you working on it? Let me give you an example. For example, you may say, my strength is I'm a quick learner. And if you say that, also briefly share how you come to discover that you're a quick learner, maybe in your internship, maybe your project, maybe your past experience, how you've learned new skills or how you learn new concepts there. Alright, so talk about that, that's important. Or you might say that you're a good team player. And if you say that is your strength, then always justify that briefly. Okay? And when he asks you for your weakness, don't bluntly say, no, I have no weaknesses, or don't say, no, I cannot share them. No, he's not getting personal, but he wants to know if you're aware and if you acknowledge your weaknesses. So if you're mentioning about your weakness, always add with what are the initiatives you're taking to overcome it. That's very important. For example, you may say one of my weaknesses is managing time. But when you mention that, also go on to mention how are you taking time or how are you overcoming that weakness. Maybe you say, I'm working, I have a personal reminder in my cell phone, or I keep this post notes on my desk, and or you have a calendar that you're following. So you're showing that you're saying that you acknowledge that you have a weakness, but you're also taking initiatives to work on and overcome this weakness. Now that's very important. All right. The next question is, he would always ask you, what are the challenges that you have faced? That's a very important question. Right? Now, why would he ask you what are the challenges you face? It's not so that you go back and you tell your pity story and you become very emotional. No. The reason he's asking you the challenges that you face is he wants to see, or he wants to know, your problem-solving skills. How would you solve problems? Right? How do you work under stress? Because we know a work environment can always be challenging. There can be different seasons and phases in a professional work life. You always have problems, you always have challenges. So an interviewer wants to know, or an employer wants to know, how have you faced the problems that you faced so far? How do you handle stress? Alright? So when you want to answer this question, don't get too personal and don't get very emotional about it as well. Alright? So what do? You talk about the challenge that you generally faced, maybe in your previous work experience, or maybe when you were at college at an internship, or maybe at a fest, or talk about the genuine challenge that you faced, but also, most importantly, focus on how you overcame the challenge. Alright, that's very important, because that will communicate to the employer or the interviewer that yes, you faced the challenge, but you handled it well, you overcame it well, and that says a lot about you. Alright, so always talk about that. And maybe you can also add on to say what you learned from that challenging experience. Now that would be like a bonus point, for that question. Talk about how did you learn, what did you learn out of that experience. That will be great. Alright? And the next question, he would always ask you is, what would you want to be, or where do you see yourself in the next 5 years or 10 years? Right? Now that's a great question. Now, why would he ask you that? Why is an employer or interview asking you where you'd say, I don't know what's going to happen for me tomorrow. I can't think about next 5 years or 10 years, right? But you don't say that, But why is he asking you that question? Because he wants to know if you are ambitious. He wants to know what are your long-term goals, And if he wants to know if your long-term goals are aligned, with the vision and the goals of the company, all right? So how do you answer it? If you watch some reality shows or some of the things that you watch on TV, some people would say, if an interviewer or an employer would ask, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? This person would say, in your place, right? Or the next CEO of this company. No. That's not for an interview. Do not respond like that. That's a big no. All right. So how do you answer that? You always talk about your career graph. You talk about your ambition in that direction. You stress on your, because he wants to know whether whether you will commit yourself to this position or to this company. So you stress on the fact that yes, you are committed to a long-term career in this organization or company, right? So you stress on the fact that yes, that you are committed for a long-term relationship with this company or organization. All right. You also showcase your enthusiasm, in that job or the profile that's being offered, and you demonstrate it. You just don't, be very vague or general, but you talk about how excited you are, for this job, how excited you are to be, excited you are, looking forward to be part of this organization or company. So you stress on that, you talk about that, and that's a better way to answer, that question. And the last question, which normally is always asked, is the interviewer himself will ask you, do you have any questions for us? Right? Why would an interviewer or an employer ask a candidate to ask him back a question? Right? That sounds strange, but that's a very important question, because an employer or an interviewer wants to know if you're really interested in the job profile. Right? He wants to know if you're really the right fit for that post. So don't respond saying, no sir, I don't have questions, because that would mean that you're really not bothered, or you really don't care about this profile or this job role that's being offered. No. So what question would you ask? Can you ask, is it the right time to ask the salary? So how much would you be offering? No. Do not, never ask, when an interviewer is giving you the opportunity to ask questions, don't raise the topic of salary there. Allow the organization to make you an offer, and then you will have an opportunity to negotiate your salary and things like that at a later point of time. But at the first level, never ask him about what's being offered. Alright? But what question would you ask? You ask questions related to the job, related to the company. Keep it very brief. Don't ask too many questions, maybe just one or two. But it's always good to ask a question related to the job profile, or maybe you could ask about the culture that's prevalent in the organization. So that question says that you're trying to be more interested, you're very keen on further knowing about the experience of the company or organization that you're looking forward at. Alright, so these are the most common questions that's being asked, and that's the more appropriate way to answer them. Alright, the next, let's look at the HR round, the human resources round, where every candidate will always face an HR round, interview. And now the questions that's going to be asked at the HR round is basically behavioral questions. All right, it's basically an evaluation of interpersonal skills, because an HR wants to know how good a team player you are. What are the interpersonal skills that you have? Because individually you may be great, you may have great knowledge and understanding about the job, or about the skills, or maybe you may have great expertise in that particular domain. But the HR wants to know if you can work well with others. Remember, in an organization, in a company, you always work in a team. So team is important. So the HR round is basically very important, because that is where they're going to assess you on your interpersonal skills. What drives you? Are you a motivator? Do you have leadership skills and abilities there? So those are the kind of questions that's being offered there. So let's look at what are the common general questions that have been asked in an HR round. They would ask you questions like, what makes you a leader? Because that's basically targeting your leadership skills and abilities there. They would ask you, how would you motivate your subordinates? It's very important. They would ask you, how do you resolve conflicts? Because we know every organization that there can be always times where you always have conflicts within employees, within an organization setup. So you'll always face that. But that's why they ask you, how do you resolve it? So when you face those settings or situations, how do you resolve it? All right. They would also ask you, how do you take decisions? Because they're trying to process, how do you actually take up decisions? Are you just in a moment? Are you very emotional, personal person where you just take decisions, here and now, or do you really analyze things and then take up decisions? Because the way you answer that will convey that to the interviewer. All right. He will also ask you, what makes you think you are a team player? So when you answer all of these questions, also it's good to answer these questions with briefly explaining your previous experience of how you did it. Otherwise it'll sound very general, very vague, right? So every question that you answer it with a previous experience of how, for example, what makes you think you're a good team player? If he asks you, you always involve or include an experience where you previously share how you were a team player, maybe in your college fest, or maybe in your internship, maybe in your previous work experience, how you pitched in, or how you actually contributed to the team and to the task that was assigned to you. So that says a lot more than you just vague general answers. All right? So keep that in mind. Sometimes they would ask you to explain about your personality traits as well. Why? Because they want to know if you know yourself well, your strengths, and what kind of a trait you are. So so there's nothing to hide. Don't say something that you are not. It's always good to be very, 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 very clear. But it says that you know who you are, but also add with how you are working on your weaknesses, for example. So that's a better way of answering these HR questions. All right. Now there's also another type of interview which we call it as stress interview. I'm sure you've heard of it. You've watched it in different settings. All right. What is a stress interview? Why would they have something called as a stress interview? The word itself, sometimes when you hear it, it can be stressing to you, right? But the reason for a stress interview is basically to evaluate your composure and confidence under difficult or unclear situations and circumstances. It's very important. Like I said before, work environment can be challenging, right? You can have your ups and downs in it. And every employer wants to know your ability in how you handle stressful situations, how you manage the problems that you face. All right. So some of the questions that they would ask you in a stress interview is what is your professional attitude, right? Because this year they're trying to evaluate your attitude also. They would ask you what makes you ethical. It's very important because when you're answering that, you're also showcasing your inner belief, your values that you're grounded by. So it's very important to pay attention, when you answer these questions. All right. Sometimes they may ask you, what is more important than money, and why? It's a very smart and tricky question. But yes, sometimes they may ask you, what are the 3 mistakes of your life? Right? You cannot say, oh no, I have not made any mistake, because come on, that is very, very unrealistic, right? All of us have made mistakes, but you answer it very, very well. You answer it very, very smartly. You acknowledge, yes, you have made some mistakes, but also, like I said, always add with how you overcame or what you learned out of those experiences, right? They may ask you, how do you deal with an unethical friend, right? So these questions sometimes come under a stress interview, but it says a lot about you and your personality and your attitude and the values that you are grounded on. So it's very important that you prepare and you think about these questions as you face them. All right, quickly, let's look at what are the do's and the don'ts, in an interview setting. All right. Okay, let's first look at what are the do's. Firstly, your appearance. What is important? Okay, be clear and be comfortable. Okay, the way you present yourself, like we said, your first impression is always a lasting impression. So what you wear, how you sit, your body language, your postures, be very clear and be very comfortable. All right. Second, body language. Like I said, always be relaxed and be very formal. Do not walk in, looking very casual or informal. Right. It says a lot about you. So be relaxed. Don't be so closed or uptight. Try to just relax, take a deep breath, and be formal. Communication, be focused, be brief. Like I said, don't get too personal in some of the questions that they ask you, and don't get too emotional as well. They don't want to know about your entire history and geography, right? Just be very brief. Summarize what's most important to you. All right. Again, your expressions, be enthusiastic and be positive. Sometimes the questions may be very difficult. Sometimes the questions could make you think, but it's all right. Be positive. Don't be cynical. Don't make negative statements, but be positive. Be enthusiastic. All right. You should sound and look, excited and happy that you're applying for a job in that particular organization. All right. So these are some of the do's that it's good for you to keep in mind. What are the don'ts? What you shouldn't be doing, or what you should avoid doing in an interview? First, do not be self-conscious. Sometimes it can happen. Sometimes when you walk in an interview, or when you sit and you see, maybe it's a panel interview, there are a lot of people and everyone is looking at you, staring at you. You can make you very self-conscious and try to check on your clothing and try to check out your your face and things like that. No, avoid that. Do not be too self-conscious. All right. As you walk in, focus on what's at hand and take it as they ask you questions. Second most important is avoid gum or avoid chewing gum in your mouth. Avoid always touching your glass and your head. Avoid wearing a cap or maybe any other headgear. So you're always trying to fidget with it or touch it. No, avoid doing that. All right, that's a big no-no. Third most important, at least in today's settings, always remember your phone that you carry. It's an instrument and not an ornament. So when you walk in for an interview, don't take out your phone, keep it on the table, or don't keep fiddling around with it, don't keep playing around with it. No, it's only an instrument. It's not an ornament for you to showcase or portray. Switch it off or put it on silent mode and just put it down somewhere. It's not important to touch it or look at it. All right? That's a big no-no. Next, never ask for any personal numbers of the interviewers there. Don't end up taking a selfie or a picture. Don't try to network there or start maybe to chat. No, don't ask for anything. Don't ask for anything like that. All right. And most important is, if you're wearing a tattoo, if you have a tattoo on your arm or anywhere that is very visible, try to cover it. Right? It's always good that you don't, because that would stand out and you don't know who the person is that's interviewing you. So always avoid. Always see if it's possible for you to cover the tattoos on the visible portions of your body, and also it's good to cover any kind of excessive religiosity that you may have, maybe beads, chains, whatever. It's good to to cover it. All right, and the most important thing is never condemn, never criticize or be cynical. During the complete phase of interview, it could also be something about your previous organization that you worked with, or maybe an internship that you were working at. If a question arises, don't be too negative about your previous employer or your previous team member, and don't be cynical about that experience. All right, that says a lot about about who you are. So these are some of the things that you can avoid. All right, and yes, finally, what are some of the most important things to remember in this entire process that we go through? All right, first, always maintain an eye contact. When an interviewer is asking you questions, don't look down, don't look at the ceiling, don't keep looking around, because it looks like you're lost or you're not sure of what you're saying. All right, so avoid that. Always look into their eyes and, you know, gently and comfortably and maintain the eye contact. All right, and answer briefly to whatever they're asking you. Second, very important, listen well and actively. You know, wait for them to finish asking the questions. Don't immediately jump to conclusions. You know, if someone is asking you something, don't jump with it, right? No, don't do that. Listen well, take time, and listen actively, right? Like I said, your non-verbal communications are very important. Your gestures, your body language is very important. Pay attention to the question they're asking you, right? If you've not heard the question well, it's all right. You can ask them to repeat the question, but don't jump. Don't be quick to answer any questions that they ask you. All right. And third, do not interrupt. If they're asking you something, do not interrupt what they're saying or asking. Wait for them to finish. That's good. Next, very important point, always be positive and be pleasant. All right, put a smile on your face. You know, be positive. You know, whatever question they're asking you, no matter how long it's getting, it could be tiring for you, but always be pleasant, remain calm. All right, that's very, very important. You know, sometimes some of this interview process can be a day-long experience because there are a lot of candidates who would have waited outside for a long time. You know, but no matter what's happened in the background, when you are sitting before the interviewer, always be positive and be calm and pleasant. All right. Next, you know, disagree. You know, respectfully. There could be some things that when they ask, or maybe the interviewers would comment, you know, that you may not agree. It's all right. You don't have to agree to everything that they say or comment. If you disagree, but disagree respectfully. Tell them why you disagree and just leave it there. Don't get into a debate there. Don't get into an argument there. All right? It's a big no-no. And most important is when you speak, avoid the usage of slangs. Right? Avoid talking, you know, bilingually. Don't mix up two languages. Speak in any one language that they're asking you and speak it well. Speak slowly. All right? Don't avoid talking too fast or too slow or too soft. Right? Be calm, be pleasant, and speak well. All right? And maybe you can always paraphrase what you're trying to say, or maybe the question that they're asking you. So these are some of the important things to remember while you prepare to face an interview. And remember, the most important thing is this: an interview is a conversation. It is not an interrogation. It is a conversation that you're going to have with the interviewers there. So make it learning, make it fun, all right? And don't be fearful of it, all right? I hope you've had some learning out of this talk. All the very best. God bless you.